It's past 7.
7:01 tequila shots still.
No, unfortunately. No, Carrie's on it.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. After the roll call, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hathaway?
Present.
Palmer? Present. Flintoft? Present. Brazeau?
Present.
Carrie? Present. Noel? Present. Reiser?
Present.
All here.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So first item is adoption of the agenda. And as I notified the board earlier, I'd like to remove item G8, that's the Palmer Warehouse site plan. Reason being that it actually is not ready for the board's consideration this evening. Is there anything else in terms of the agenda?
I'd like to pull G5 from consent to the bottom of new business.
Okay.
I move the agenda as amended.
Support.
So moved by Reiser, support by Palmer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the agenda is adopted. Communications to the Board of Trustees.
They're included.
That brings us to public comment. This is a time for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on any matter under the purview of the Board of Trustees. And we hear first from those who are present here in the hall, and then we turn to those who are participating remotely. You're on timekeeping?
Yes, I'm on that.
Oh, I see. Terry and Joyce are present as well. Thank you. Pam, please proceed.
Pam Boyd, an active and well-informed Scio resident, Scio community newsletter. I would like to ask the board how many members have read the complete packet before tonight's meeting. Besides the overabundance of pages filled with the people's signatures, how many of you noticed that Plant Moran has mislabeled us on their cover page as a charter township?
No.
Yeah.
There are some other areas. Brian Canmiller is here tonight. Tell us where to be.
Thank you. Make the change.
Worse yet, how many of you voted for Heritage Roots Project in May? The May meeting missed the fact that Heritage Woods had tucked into the documentation that they were putting in a 12-foot easement to a little strip of land owned by Ruth Johnson between the Spicer property and 994. This came before the Planning Commission meeting last night, asking for zoning to be changed from R1 single family residential to C3 highway commercial. Since Brazeau, Hathaway, Palmer, and Reiser voted for this, did you consider asking what Heritage Woods' future plans were for this property that they didn't currently own? As one planning commissioner remembers, the discussion was it would be part of a pathway, but this was not property currently owned by Heritage Woods. Further, changing it to highway commercial doesn't make sense if it's a pathway. Was it an innocent mistake, an oversight, or what they don't know won't hurt them from the developer? I don't know, but it was a little suspect. One could imagine a highway billboard being erected in short order after clearing away all the trees to advertise Heritage Woods is my personal guess, or something else. The Planning Commission last night unanimously denied this rezoning and were a bit unhappy at their discovery of this. This board should also be unhappy and make it a habit to read the proposal and not rubber stamp a recommendation. If you can't or don't like reading the packet and its lengthy documents before the meetings, you shouldn't be a trustee. Thank you.
My name is Dave Spicer, South Township residents. I just want to sort of echo what she just said, is that I could not believe last night that they actually tried to push something through and saying that there was always a 12-foot access to get to that landlocked property. I've been to about every trustee meeting, and you people here know, I've never, ever heard of that being in there. And then the planning commission had said, it's such small writing in there, it almost looks like they were trying to be, trying to do something that's not right, to deceive people. So I'm just sort of wondering, is it really legal for this board to pass Heritage Woods by knowing that thing was in there? Or does that need to be taken out of there, or what? I mean, I've tried to find it today, this morning, with the big blueprints there. I could not find that little spot in there that they were trying to say. And the guy last night said, well, you can see right there, it says 12 feet, but you gotta really look close to see if that even is what it's supposed to be for. So I'd like to have a copy sometime at the office here where I can come and pick up a small copy of the planning commission's approval of it, to see what it shows on that one. And then the one from the trustees, and when they passed it, whatever, see what this is, I want to see if there's any difference between the two, to see if they tried to slide something in there when the people here passed that. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. Again, let's go gather the data and the facts first before we make any kind of decisions or assumptions or.
I mean, still though, they went ahead and thought they could push that thing through the 12-foot wide.
I hear you. Let's go find out, and
right.
I'll look into it.
Sure.
I'll take that one on.
Hi, Kathy Spicer, Scio Township resident, 525 Baker Road. I wanted to bring up something that I missed saying at the Planning Commission meeting last night because I got buzzed. Then I tried to hurry up and I forgot to say it. It just means a lot to me. That 2.4 acre landlocked parcel that us Spicers, the land we own, surrounds it, and then I-94 does. It was up for the rezoning, as it was just told to you folks. It starts at Heritage Woods Development, passes through our up to our backyard. So we were really interested in this, and where in the heck did this all come from? We were shocked to hear that the developer of Heritage Woods, Dan Johnson and company, were pursuing this property. It brings to mind a sharp statement as us residents, Spicer and Mr. Kett, tried to fight for value of our property and negotiations with the Boulevard Agreement. And I don't have the date in front of me, but doggone it, Al Green sat here and Dan Johnson sat here and sharply stated to all and almost turned to us, stating, we don't need their property. We don't want their property. It just stabbed me in the heart, and I just couldn't find the date today. He did state in the meeting of 5/23/2023 at the final proposed PUD meeting, and I read it today and listened to it. He also said again, we don't need their property. Yet they want to take this landlocked and kind of push into us. And what are they going to do? What are they doing to us? You know, it just doesn't seem fair. So trustees, you know, this may come back to you again sometime, this little parcel that's landlocked. I'm just gonna remember this cruel and ruthless attitude that the developer seems to have. And thank you, and keep us residents. There's just us. That's all that we can fight for. And even the public hearing, it was just a couple of us. It's not like a lot of township people, although we do have a few, Kathleen and Rob and Pam, that really stick up for some of the residents. So I just wanted to pass that on and keep that in mind. And I hope if it does come to you guys, keep us in mind of what's happening. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First off, I didn't get a chance to watch the meeting live last night. I watched the last few minutes of it. But I did look at the plans from last November from Heritage Woods, as well as information from specific match line page on the engineering documents. There is a 12-foot sidewalk. There is no road within our just general engineering guidelines that can feasibly accommodate traffic at 12 feet. There's also no road shown on the plans to go to this parcel, which you would think there would need to be at least some sort of vehicular access to make it developable in any real way. And I think that would need to go back to the Planning Commission for a PUD and an amendment of some sort. Anyways, a couple other things off the top of my head. Thank you, Clerk Flintoff. I changed my driver's license address recently since I did move. I got my voter's ID card within like 2 or 3 business days, which was like very fast. I was surprised. I do also have a question. We were talking about water fees at probably 3 or 4 meetings ago. Something that we haven't taken action on yet. I don't want my water bill to go up. Believe me, I know none of us do. But we also don't want to have to pay even more later on because we didn't charge people for a longer period of time what we need to do to recover cost. Speaking of water bills, I got a water bill for like $950 the other day from Scio Township on a building we hadn't even moved into yet. Turns out there was a billing error, which we thankfully were able to correct, but it goes to show you we still really do need help, not only in utilities, but the other finance areas of the township. So if we can work on that, that would be awesome. Shout out to Lori for figuring that out quickly as to what the problem actually was. I do know that we have Plant Moran on the agenda tonight. I know he's not here to speak about it, but if we could hear about the progress on the audit, since I know I did read the clerk's report, we are getting closer, but we only have so many meetings before it's due. So just making sure we think about that. Thanks, everybody.
And I'll just say on the water rates, we are still meeting internally and do hope that the additional finance director services will help us finish our rate analysis and bring it to the board.
How you guys doing?
Good.
Okay, I guess I'll be ready in a second here. Well, I'm getting pretty wore out, man. It's Jamie Windler from Scio Church, 7925. Well, I tell you what, the first thing we should probably do is get rid of Carla Wortman and Doug Lewin, and probably Will. Them guys, they run you through a big goose chase to give you all these things to follow, these guidelines, and nothing gets done. Nothing's going to get done. I was just talking to Will a couple weeks ago, and he said pretty much, "I'll see you later, Jamie. I talked to you." He's telling me he can't do nothing about giving these fruits that are selling their Misty Farms. They're trying to sell as a business now. And Ed promised me last year that he was just going to sell it. And there's another lie. He promised me he was just going to sell it as a home, because they want quite a bit of money for 16 acres. That half of it's a swamp. And there's no room for building or nothing like that. They got the houses behind it. So anybody's going to buy this, going to buy for that kind of money, going to buy for a business, not for anything else. You know, they got a septic tanks running into the pond. The pond ain't no good. No one's going to, they ain't going to sum that. It's just all this is a big old hoax. It's supposed to be a agriculture business. They're supposed to have 51% of their money coming off what they make off the farm. There's no farm there whatsoever. I used to farm about a couple acres on that place. It was hard to farm it. It's too tight. They're not making money off of farming. And, everything that them guys said has been a lie. They haven't been honest one time on anything. And I just, it's just sad because whoever's going to buy it is just going to buy it for a business. And I'm running the same problem. There's buses going down. I got a picture of my thing. Buses up down my road yesterday or Saturday. They had buses parked in the middle of the road for 20 minutes, just parked right there. There ain't that much of a shoulder on that road. And I'm talking like Greyhound buses and big limousine type buses. A few of them running around. They're parked right in the middle of the road, blocking up traffic. They got the music playing. It's just the same old stuff. It's just going to get worse because now you're going to sell it to somebody else and they're going to expect to run a business out of it. It's not commercial property. It don't even fall in the guidelines of what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be to help a farmer out. And this has went on too long. And they promised me, they was going to sell it. as a home. And it's the same stuff. She's gonna take one last big dump on me and she's gonna take off wherever she's going, then I gotta deal with it. But I tell you, whatever buys that farm, that business, that hall, I'm gonna give them hell. And it's gonna be the worst fight. I ain't gonna be as, I've been cool with the Fruits, way too nice to them people, but it's gonna be a war. If anybody thinks they're gonna come in there and they're gonna have music and do all this stuff, do what they're doing now, they're gonna expect to make money off of it. And it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good. That's all I'm gonna say for anybody. You know, and plus when someone gets killed out there, I'm gonna make sure that they come to you guys for allowing this. I mean, they got buses. You guys say you're gonna fix it and nothing gets fixed and never have and never will.
Thank you, Jamie.
I know. I got my 3 minutes. I wanted to talk to you one time, just really talk to you with the whole group and not have this kind of stuff. Give me 3 fucking minutes.
One question, if this property is being sold, can we check the zoning at that point and say, hey, is this property being zoned? I mean, he brought up a point about 51%.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yeah.
What I wanted to suggest, because there's been, I had some questions, you know, both for our fire chief about opportunity to bring up the fire code of that building. Also, the CUP, you know, it travels with the land. What does that mean? I do remember a lot of discussion at the time about it being purchased as at least discussion about whether it be owner occupied or not. And so what I think would be helpful, Joyce, if possible, and it's probably a combination of Doug and just some time at this table, is just to get some reminders and education about those 2 properties and the status and what happens when it's sold. And then I think the second piece of it is just where are we at? And you don't have to answer this now, Joyce, because I know you just posted, but where are we at with the code enforcement program?
Right. Yeah, I mean, so maybe they got away with something that I don't know, what are we saying is accurate or not accurate? I'm just gonna go by, let's just go by the data, pure by the data. But if the data says it's 51% needs to be farmed and it's not, that's a problem. If there's it's not supposed to be the main source of commercial income, and it is, that's a problem.
Right.
So let's just stick to the hard data. If they're not living to the hard data, this is a binary decision.
And if they are, then it's relatively moot. Please.
It's been going on for years.
Please, let's proceed with public comment.
Whoa, but how do we get the answer to Mark's question, Will?
Well, we have information about what the conditional use permits are for the 2 different locations. They varied between the 2 different sites, Misty Valley and Misty Farm. It's not the same for both. And there have been lots of discussions going on about what will happen and what could happen with the sale of the one property that is for sale. And we can provide information to board members if they have questions. Yes, we should. If they have questions and they pose questions and ask for information, we should get them information as opposed to just like, you know, so having an impromptu agenda item.
Certainly not impromptu. I'm suggesting
that we have, all I'm saying, let's just go gather the data.
Yeah.
You guys know me by now. Gather the data and see what the data tells us.
Okay. And Mark's already been gathered. Yeah.
So obviously board members are asking questions.
Yes.
And not getting answers.
You're clear on that. I have questions. I can provide some history on this because I was involved in the negotiations for the 2nd set of conditional use permits, and it was a nightmare. But so
let's plan a time when Doug is present. He's not here tonight, and we'll have an informed discussion about it in response to the questions that board members have raised.
And
let's proceed with public comment.
Ask that I'd make a motion that we have an agenda item on the status of Misty Farm and the accompanying property at a regular board meeting in August or September.
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Let's move on with public comment.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
I can hear you.
If there's no one else present who would like to make a public comment, then we'll move on to those participating remotely.
Well, you know I'm taking.
Oh, well, sit down. Please
these
proceed.
people are still talking.
Well, please, let's stop the side conversation so that we can proceed with public comment. Please, Kathleen, proceed.
You are trying to subvert my comments, obviously, Mr. Supervisor.
You know, I struggled with what I was gonna talk about tonight, and I think I just firmed it up. It's all related anyway. This board acts like you can't do anything about Misty Farms. That's bull. You know what the regulations are. You know what's in the conditional use. You have the ability right now, today, to do an audit of their business. Do an audit of the books of their business. This has always been an option, always. And Mr. Luan is never doing this option because he always makes exceptions, but not for residents. So Manager Parker, I apologize for raising my voice. Would you please add this as an action item to put this as an item to request an audit of their commercial business and their agricultural business? They are breaking Michigan statute and they are breaking Scio Township's conditional use permit. They've been doing it for years. And this township, not this board, but previous boards, were more than happy to let that happen. I ask you, please, to do the right thing. It's all related to our planner. Maybe not all of you know this because it hasn't been officially announced, but Mr. Luan is leaving in November from Scio Township. The relationship is very unknown, where he talks about stepping back, but have his fingers in the townships. Who defines that relationship? Does Carlisle Wortman define that relationship? No. Scio Township contracts for this service. They define the relationship. And obviously, Mr. Luan has no problem in defining the relationship. He defines what he wants to do, who is going to get the benefit of his zoning administrator title. If he is leaving in November, it is a perfect time to look for an in-house planning staff person. You can see none of the residents think that Carlisle Wortman is impartial. An in-staff person would be our best option. Do it now. Put some guidelines in, put some guardrails in right now for Doug Luan, because he is doing whatever he wants.
Anyone else present who would like to speak during public comment?
Sure.
If not, let's turn to those who are participating remotely.
We have Ann Streeter, followed by Ron Pattinson. Ann, you can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Ann Streeter at 7869 Scio Church Road. I live between two party barns, and I've been coming to these meetings for quite a few years, the planning meetings as well as the board meetings. I'm asking tonight to not renew the conditional land use for Misty Farm at 8040 Scio Church Road. I also sent you an email on this tonight, so you can also look at the email. It was dated in 2010, or I should say signed in 2010. Since the owners have it up for sale, since June 2023, which I've also included in that email an attachment of the for sale ad by Coldwell Banker currently. The BOT can take away the conditional land use for both of these properties. And that I'm asking for Misty Farm, but I would also like the Valley. I mean, both of them have caused a lot of grief on our, as Catherine mentioned, the agritourism is supposed to be a supplemental income to the farm. This has never been met. In this case, it is 16 acres with no farming done on this land for years. There is no farm revenue. Majority of the 16 acres is swamp, with the other being a house, barns, along with parking. The neighbors have had issue with Misty in the valley over the years, which is about 600 yards from each other, 600 yards. We had a petition given to the previous board, along with attending many BOT and planning meetings over the years, voicing our concerns. The owners originally said when they were going for the CLU for the valley that they would close down Misty Farm, and that did never happen. And now they're selling it as a commercial venue. I have attached a quick list of items. I'm sorry, it's very quick. That have been issues over the years. I have given many pictures in the past. I would be willing to give pictures again of buses, of semi-trucks, of people, you know, in the road, of golf carts in the road with no headlights at night, totally black, plus all the traffic that goes, a neighbor's sign that says, "Don't come down our driveway, we have dangerous dogs," or whatever her sign says. Our family, we'd like to have a country life back again. There was one summer of COVID, we actually had that every week because they were closed down, and it was nice. We forgot what it was like all these years of living here. And we have lived here a lot longer than the Frutigs have lived here. My husband's family has been here for 4 generations. They have been farmers for 4 generations. And they have had farms in Scio, in Lodi, in Freedom, as well as Lima. They have been true farmers, working hard for their money, not a venue like this. The last time the sheriff came out after the wedding, they came out after the wedding. They didn't, you know, a lot of times they don't have a decibel reader. And so then they would have to go back to the station, go get the red decibel reader, and then come back. And a lot of times the sheriff won't even come out. And it shouldn't be on the sheriff's shoulders. This is Scio's shoulders. This is monitoring what Scio agreed to. And I disagree with Will. This is a Scio problem. It is not a neighbor problem. I've had peace and quiet for many years before all this started happening. We found out in 2021 finally in 2021, how to file a formal complaint. So if you go to the files, you won't see very many complaints because we were around a circle between the supervisor at that time, the administration and everything, and saying, oh, it's on the website, blah, blah, blah. We were going around in circles trying to figure out how to file a formal complaint. So you won't see a whole lot before 2021. I could go on and on. I've done it for years now. And a lot, I mean, the new board members don't know me, but the ones that have been around for a while do. Please free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if you want to discuss. I'm willing to be there. This has got to stop. This is crazy. The other night, it was like 2 or 3 weddings ago, there was 6 to 8 guys running from the valley to Misty on the road in the middle of the night at midnight, or even beyond that, screaming and yelling, which woke me up out of a sound sleep. And some guy was peeing alongside the road and talking about how he was trying to get his pants up while he was running. I could hear that clearly from my house.
And so
Yeah.
so I don't mean to cut you off, but you haven't 5 minutes, but hear this. I hear you loud and clear. I don't know why Scio Township Board is letting the tail wag the dog. We should be the one mandating, demanding, enforcing law. Simple as that. If we're not doing that, I don't know why. I think some of you who do know me by now, I'm not a very passive individual. So I wouldn't take that stuff lightly. So I'll give you my commitment as a board. We'll let the data drive the decision. If they are clearly violating their land use, they're gonna get the license revoked. It's simple as that. It's black and white. There's not debate. There's not an argument. If you don't follow the rules, you don't get to use the property the way it is. Again, I'm assuming that everything you tell, I don't know if everything you told me is true or not, doesn't matter. We'll let the data drive it. So the data will speak. If they're not generating the 51% like they're supposed to, it's end of story. It gets revoked in my mind. At least I'm one vote, and I think I can encourage everyone here. So I can't speak to the last 11 years, the rest of the board. I can speak for myself. I don't like taking that kind of crap. I was bullied a lot when I was a kid, so I guess I always fight back now. I feel like a fighter. So you'll have my word that I will look into it. I won't let it go until this is fully resolved. And I think we've got Jessica and some others who feel it as strongly or stronger than I do, along with Kathy Knoll. So we will get to the bottom of this post haste. It will not drag.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add on, Mark, to get the data.
Well, the reason I want to go through because we've been talking about it for a long time. It deserves time to resolve.
Just take some time and talk about Misty Farm.
So at a future meeting, but to get the data, that 51%, that analysis would actually have to be done. And so Joyce, I'll defer to you on how that gets done. But I do think the right people involved are Doug Luan, our current code enforcement officer, if we have somebody new on board by that time, our township attorney, our fire chief, and anybody else who's needed. But at minimum, those are the people who need to prepare the information for the presentation and discussion.
Well, I'd rather spend 5 minutes now than 20 more meetings talking about it and not getting anything done. So I just just get it done, kill it, so to speak, and move on to the next issue, right? Because we got plenty more issues behind this one. Let's just go take care of it.
Okay, let's move on now with public comment. Who's next? I think you said Rob was up.
That's correct. Rob, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Rob Pattinson, Scio Township. I have to relate something in real time here. Trustee Brazeau, you just asked a very significant question and received a very dismissive answer, verbally and with body language, from the supervisor. He has absolutely no interest in pursuing this, and in fact, I predict will block efforts to resolve this. Now I will begin my comments. Please start the timer now. The combined working session was a great leap forward in establishing how we want Scio and the J-Rod to look in the future. It also emphasized the need for the PUD public benefit requirements to be better defined. All the groups need to work on this, the BOT, the DDA, and the Planning Commission. We need an algorithm that developers can apply to a proposed project so they know what will be expected of them when they make a PUD application. They need clear and fair directions that show them Scio is welcoming them to make a profit in Scio and also expecting them to contribute to the community. Has any progress been made on the auto pay problems that were discovered a month ago? Thank you for hiring some help for our finance manager, Rebecca Motti. I notice this will be a position that many departments will use for help. This is a good step towards resolving the cruelty shown to Rebecca over the last 2 years. As David Rowley pointed out, the finance department needs substantial full-time staff to do its job. With this addition, we now have 1.5 full-time staff. How are we doing with getting additional staff? How are we doing in the search for a finance director to replace the contractor help that we're talking about tonight? Last month, I asked for an amendment to the rules of order to put department reports and business at the beginning of the agenda so those public servants can go home at a reasonable hour. Is that being considered? Pam Boyd wrote to you about improving emergency preparedness. I wrote in support of her to expand the topic. Is the board receptive to the idea of improving emergency preparedness in light of the massive storm damage we experienced a couple of weeks ago? Also before this board is the information that the party barn is up for sale. That triggers the required response of the board to review the conditional use approval from 2010. Several residents have written in detail to the board about this issue. I will summarize by saying, please revoke the 2 Scio Church party barns. They are illegal by definition of state law. They have been hostile to their neighbors for 13 years. They have ignored the noise ordinance for 13 years. They have earned a revocation. Doug Luan recommended approval of the party barns in 2010. His review document acknowledges the need for a farm to have a supplemental and not a primary income from such as a party barn. Yet he recommended approval anyway. I suggest the board needs to have Doug Lewan before the board to provide an explanation. Lastly, the trustees of this board will have to work together to put items on the agenda that the supervisor won't. The party barns are an example. Another example is the power grab of 2021. This board has the power to undo all of the issues that power grab brought up, including the lawsuit. If you work together to undo the power grab, this township can finally get to work on the things that have been left by the wayside by our supervisor. It is an impediment and a distraction you have the power to resolve. It will take strength and courage, and I hope you will act. Because of the time limits, I've had to split my public comments about the Planning Commission meeting last night to the closing comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. No more.
All right, let's move on. Approval of the minutes. We have one set of minutes.
July 25th.
Yes. Okay. I won't go through page by page, but if someone has a correction.
Any changes, corrections?
Please bring it up. Page 2 of the minutes, which is page 6 of my packet. Heard from the top, field representative, Georgia, no last name. Her last name is Frost.
So even though she didn't state that.
Typically what I do, I mean, I can put it in brackets that it is Frost, but it's, you know, typically for things like that, when people don't provide their name, I don't go back and fill it in, but I can.
Except it says at the end, she left cards with her contact information.
Okay.
That's where I got her name from. Let's see. Page 6 of the minutes. So there's a discussion included, a bunch of bullet points. The second bullet point from the bottom, it's preserves, not preservers. And then I think if we could add in this last bullet point where it says create a barrier wall, if we could modify that to say create a pedestrian safety barrier wall.
Okay.
And then further down, pedestrian safety barrier on the bridge.
Okay.
Just so people.
So to have pedestrian safety barrier.
Yeah,
yep.
So people understand we're trying to bar cars or pedestrians from getting across. On page 7, it says Metzger property. I think that should say Baxter property.
Oh, the Baxter property where Metzger's is.
Where Metzger's is located. And then I think that's it, unless anyone else has any other corrections. Is someone prepared to move the minutes as corrected? Moved by Carrie, support by Brazeau. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. That brings us to the consent agenda. Is someone prepared to move the consent agenda as modified? Item G5 moved.
I would move for support, not move.
I'll support it.
Okay, Riser, it's moved by Riser, support by Noel. Please call the roll.
First up tonight is Hathaway. Hathaway.
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoff? Yes. Brazeau?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Riser?
Yes.
Consent agenda as amended, adopted.
That brings us to reports. And there are some written reports. Are there any questions for written reports or any additional comments to supplement the written reports?
I have a question.
Please proceed.
Okay. John, your planning commission report, we heard from some residents who were watching the planning commission last night Did you actually see the reference to the easement on the plans for Heritage Woods?
Yes, we gathered around Jeff Human's computer and saw them.
Okay, I've got to go back and find it because I had read all of it and I did not see the easement.
The easement on what? What document did you expect to see it on?
The Johnson property that.
It's one that Pam provided.
No, I understand, but Kathy specifically, you're asking, did the easement appear
on the plans that were before the board?
It's my recollection that we gathered around Jeff Human's laptop and looked at it. That was.
At what the board approved, what we had approved?
Well, maybe I don't understand your question.
Yeah, I want to make sure you do.
I don't want to misspeak, Kathy.
Yeah. That's why I interjected, John.
So there's the planning commission packet and then the board packet. So you're asking about the board packet?
I am asking about the board packet, but I want to know if it's in the planning commission packet too. So it's two questions now.
Yeah. And given the technical nature of it, I don't want to misrepresent. So I'd want to look at the planning commission packet right now to see what was there specifically.
And I did see that today in the planning commission packet.
So you looked at it today?
The planning commission packet.
Planning commission packet.
Well, yes, it's a lot to go through and it is very tiny. And it's page 15 of the planning commission, November, I believe. I can't remember which date in November. Is that?
November 25th.
Yeah, but I had to blow it up in order to see. Now, I don't know if that is the same I couldn't find it in the board packet yesterday, but there was a lot in that packet, so.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Kathy?
Sure.
Is your question meant to kind of verify, was this easement here, this one, on what we approved for Heritage Woods?
Yes. But I had a second part.
Yeah, okay.
But yes.
Okay, so that sounds like, we'll figure that out. I'll go back and look and share out what we approved.
Okay, so
at the board.
If the easement was in there and we approved it, that means we approved the easement already? Or that's why it came in front of the, see, that's where it's so confusing about all of this.
I think there's a lot of questions, and we don't have with us anyone from Carlisle Wortman this evening because they asked if they could be at other meetings, and there's only one item that was on here that I expected them to have to speak to. I wasn't expecting them to speak to either this or the.
But I can pull the record and send it out.
Okay.
At one point, we gathered around Jeff Human's laptop to look at something he pulled up.
At something, but we just need to verify.
I gotta.
Yeah.
I think this is a good question that you're raising, Trustee Noel, but I think it's gonna take a little bit of work to pull together the documents to really answer it.
Okay. I'll do it in about 5 minutes tomorrow morning and email it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Kathy, you said you had a second question?
Well, there were two parts to my question.
Oh, two parts there, okay.
The planning commission materials and the board materials.
Got it.
And we have a plan, it sounds like, to find those and make those available to the board. Are there any other questions or comments for the reports?
I had a question, and John, I apologize. I got your written report and I need to add it to the packet. I haven't done that yet. I'm sorry.
In due time, I'm not.
Thank you for doing it. Who is Glacier Way Properties?
I don't.
That's Dan Johnson.
The applicant.
Who was the applicant who showed up at the planning commission? Who is Glacier Way Properties? I'm asking John.
I don't know who Glacier Way Properties LLC is. I know that last night.
Yeah.
It was Joe Maynard.
Joe Maynard.
That's right.
Okay.
Who was representing the
applicant. Right.
It's unlikely that he is Glacier Way Properties.
No, understood.
Dan Johnson.
Does anyone here know who the controlling partner is in Glacier Way Properties LLC? Member of the public, please spread it out.
Do you know who it
It's
is?
registered to
No.
Dan Johnson.
I don't.
At his address in Ann Arbor, Michigan,
Okay, thank you.
on Glacier Way.
Yeah, of course I don't know, otherwise I wouldn't be asking.
I don't know if
No.
that's
Okay,
the case or not.
okay,
But it is, I looked it up.
okay. Thank you, Jillian.
Are there any further questions or comments on the reports? In that case, let's move on. We don't have anything on unfinished business. We do have several items under new business. The first of them is the possible action to establish Scio Township Meeting Hall as early voting site for November 7th, 2023 special election. And this item was prepared by Clerk Flintoff, so please introduce this item.
Sure, I know you've all read this, so I'm happy to just open it up for questions. I'll just give the brief overview in addition to the background here. This resolution would be to establish Meeting Hall here for as the early vote site for the November 7th special election. That's what I'm asking for your authorization for. And we would have the 9 days of early voting. They are going to be from Saturday to Sunday, Saturday, October 28th to Sunday, November 5th. There is no early voting the day before election day. For some good administrative reasons, but certainly going to be confusing to communicate to the public. You can vote early, but not the day before the election. And then what I included here was a little more description of what would be happening in the 2024 elections, which are working plans to enter into the county-wide agreement. And I've offered up Scio Township Meeting Hall to be one of the early voting sites for that region. And you see a map there of everybody who will be voting. There are questions?
No, thank you for doing this. I would move the model motion.
Moved by Riser.
I'll support.
Support by Noel. Unless there's further discussion, please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoff? Yes. Brazeau?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Riser?
Yes.
A resolution adopted.
Thank you. That brings us to J2. That's possible action for the authorization for approval of a contract with Plant Moran GAP for Finance Director Services. And this was prepared by Township Manager Parker. I will turn to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We requested proposals for Finance Director Services, and we received 4 proposals, one from Maynard Costerison, Plant Moran, Carl Johnson, and Raymond. And internally, we interviewed each one of the firms, checked references, and received more information related to the primary person that would be assigned to the township. And based on the review internally, we're recommending Plant Moran for this service.
I can second that. I mean, I use Plant Moran today. They're excellent law firm. I'm sorry, accounting firm. Wow, slip there, Freudian slip. I was looking at you, Riser. And actually, I had Raymond once before, and they're actually better than Raymond. So they are. That's a very good choice.
And I would also just mention that Brian Kammeler from Plant Moran is here tonight as well.
Thanks for being
here. Well, there you go.
Questions.
They're very detail oriented.
Yes,
Very,
they
they do
are.
everything live.
I've worked with them quite a bit in the past, and they do a great job.
And their cost is reasonable.
Their cost is reasonable, and they offer other services that really will support the township moving forward. And they're familiar with the township because they've served as our auditor for more than 10 years.
Does this make Jessica happy?
I think so. I think it'll make.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the treasurer.
And the treasurer happy. So treasurer happy, Jessica happy.
Let me share with the board that
And everybody's
back
happy.
when they built our books, it was not good, and they built our books properly.
All right, good, awesome.
So I think we're moving forward as a team.
Do you want a motion and go?
All right,
I
so
would
we
move to approve the agreement with Plant Moran to provide finance Finance Director Services on an interim basis until the township hires a permanent basis for the position, and to authorize an amount of $10,578.33 per month from Fund 101-191.
I'll support it.
Okay, so moved by Riser, support by Palmer. Is there any further discussion?
I just wanted to give a shout out to Joyce and thank her for coordinating this whole process, as well as facilitating communication with the Department of Treasury about some potential reimbursement for these services.
I will second that. Awesome.
As long as we're not charged, as long as we're not charged Charter Township rates here.
They know we're not charter, Brian.
This sounds good.
Thank you very much for the vote of confidence, and that is my fault. I apologize. Yeah, I didn't catch it during review, but
I had aspirations for Scio.
Oh no. I will have that reissued so that for your records you have a proper document, as well as our engagement letter. We want to get it right.
Yeah.
So I'll have that to you tomorrow.
I think it may be a testament to how long Plant Moran has been associated with Scio, because there was a time when Scio called itself a charter township.
There's a lawsuit.
Call the roll.
Yes, it was a long time ago. Well, I don't call the roll, but I'll be happy to respond when it's
Okay,
called.
so that was a motion by Riser.
Yes.
Support by Palmer. Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoff? Yes. Brazeau?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Riser?
Yes.
Motion adopted 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
Brian.
you.
Thanks. So, item J3, possible action, offer of employment to Lori Carey for the position of finance assistant. And this was prepared by Clerk Flintoff. So again, I will turn to you.
Yeah, this is a move we've talked about for many, many months internally. We have a consensus on. Lori is an incredible staff member, part-time, hourly, unbenefited staff member. The former township treasurer of Manchester, Manchester Township, been doing utility billing for us part-time, and this would move her into the budgeted 1.0 finance assistant position. The half-time utility billing position would go away per our plans in the budget, and we would be able to have Lori work with the finance manager as well as Plant Moran, interim finance director, to start cross-training and finally get some redundancy for our AP and payroll and essential services, as well as expand utility billing and stuff. So she's great. We have the support of the utilities director, manager, clerk, and treasurer.
I wanted to comment too. I've interacted with Lori several times. She is great.
Yeah.
Would you like to second?
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay, moved by Brazeau, second by Noel. I thought that's what you were doing, sorry.
No, I wanted to talk.
I didn't. Please call the roll. So please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoff? Yes. Brazeau?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Riser?
Yes.
Motion adopted 7-0.
Okay, this brings us to item J4. This is possible action, the Van Curler Preserve Trailhead Parking Project. And I prepared this item, but we have with us, I believe, participating remotely, Anna Cohn.
Good.
And I think also Joe Maynard, who is helping with this particular item, this particular project, I should say. So if you could elevate both of them so that they can participate, that would be great. But I can sort of introduce this briefly. This is a project that has been on the Scio Township's kind of wish list for our parks and preserves for as long as I've been paying attention to parks and preserves. And so I think there's a lot of people who participated in the Parks Advisory Board and subsequently in the Parks, Preserves and Pathways Committee, who have been looking forward to this time when we could begin to open up public access to the Van Curler Preserve. It's a wonderful natural open space. The township is really lucky to have it. But until we have a way for people to sort of access it, it's still sort of waiting until that moment. This is that moment. I'll turn it over to Anna and Joe if you're ready to speak to this now. Oops, I think you're muted, Anna.
She's probably there right now.
Thanks. Just to echo what Will's saying and to add a little bit, this project, the parking lot project at Van Curler, has been on my radar since I was interning with Scio Township in 2021. So it has been a project that's been going on for quite a while. And I'll share that recently we discussed this project at the Parks, Preserves, and Pathways Committee meeting and made an official motion to move forward with the parking lot development. Yeah, happy to hear from Joe and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Well, why don't we hear from Joe and then we'll ask questions. He may answer it. Go ahead, Joe.
All right, you can hear me okay?
Yes.
So just a quick update for you. I did talk to the contractor who's recommended for approval tonight. They are on board to work to get this completed this year. We have received our road commission approval. Once the contractor's on board, we can get the permit issued. Soil erosion permit is in process and will be issued with the contractor as well. So with your approval tonight, it'll be moving forward. And I guess I'm here to answer any questions that you may have regarding the design or construction timing.
Clerk Flintoff.
Yeah. Anna, 2 questions. One is, can you tell me if there's any impact on trees or other natural features and what the decision making was there?
Yeah. Every parking lot, well, I don't want to say every parking lot, but most parking lots that will go in will have an ecological impact, having to take down shrubs, herbaceous plants, and trees. It is a conversation when it comes to building out a park and making it accessible to people, where the compromise is going to be made and what decisions will be made. For Van Curler, it's about 100 acres of property that was purchased. And the goal is to make that accessible to the public, since that is one of the main PPP goals and it's written up in the pros plan. And so this parking lot makes sense. There's other parking lots. For example, there's been some conversation about DD Marshall and a parking lot there where there's been some pause. The PPP committee has decided to pause on that project and really dig into the ecological impact of a parking lot there. So to answer your question, yes, trees are coming down. Joe, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I don't have the number of how many trees are coming down right now.
That's okay, but I just want to know if it was considered and found to be worth the parking lot. Okay.
It's considered. I've been out there with Joe and we've talked about leaving trees up where we can and using the ones that do come down in the parking lot. So yeah.
Great. And a second question is, all the way up to Joy Road, there's 2 more parking lots. I know with every parking lot comes a kiosk and doggy bags and a garbage can and maintenance. And so just wondering what your thoughts are about the additional maintenance burden that this puts on the township. What's the plan for that?
So this is a conversation I've had since coming on about a year ago. But currently a parks department staffed with 1 person. I'm stretched very thin to maintain all of the properties. Adding another property, and it's a large property, will add to the maintenance responsibilities of the parks department. I don't think that necessarily means that we shouldn't be adding a parking lot. I think it's a wonderful property and it's beautiful, and should be open and accessible, especially since it's already been purchased. I don't think it's necessarily fair to pause the project. The Parks Department had 4 amazing full-time temporary staff this summer, and I just became very clear that this work can be done with the right amount of people, and I think that's the likely future to the Parks Department if the Board of Trustees and residents want to support that. A fully staffed Parks Department could do a great job.
Thanks, Anna.
I had some questions.
Please, Trustee No.
Anna, how much is this parcel currently used and what are the uses?
Currently, the parcel is not open to the public because there's no safe access to the parcel. There is a pull-off. There's a couple pull-offs where you can tell people have been using the parcel, but I've put up signs that say that there's no hunting. You cannot, it's not open. I guess I can't really tell you exactly how many people go there because I'm not there because it's not open, but I have had to go put up no hunting signs, so I can say people do use it, but they should not be using it quite yet.
And not for hunting.
And not for hunting, no.
Okay, if the parking lot goes in as proposed in location 1 by Joy Road, can people walk readily immediately adjacent to the parking lot? Are there trails? Are there pathways?
There are currently no trails and no pathways that were developed or managed by the Parks Department. I have surveyed the property a few times in the past year, and there are deer trails and trails likely used by neighbors. Sam and Walker, who were working in the Parks Department this summer, developed an initial trail system and they have it mapped out, but I should say, they surveyed and mapped a potential trail system, but it's not developed. So currently, there's no true trail system that's being maintained.
Okay, thank you. To my understanding, it's wholly undeveloped and wholly unused right now, at least officially.
Sounds like you gotta start somewhere, right? It sounds like you start with the parking lot and kind of proliferate from there. I mean, right? I mean, this is kind of the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sounds reasonable.
Trustee Keating.
Hi, Anna. So this is Van Curler is in the process, the parking lot and whatnot. And then the Merceau, it was the Merceau farm. That's another idea. Also, so how many more projects are there? Other than those 2 off the top of your head?
Are you asking about parking lot development projects?
Just in general, yeah, any under the parks and pathways, any projects in the future? Or is this it for now?
There are a lot of projects in the future for the Parks Department. I'm happy to list off the ones on the top of my mind right now. I'd also encourage reading the pros plan that really outlines up to like 5 years of potential parks projects.
Okay, well, what I'm getting at is that we have these, and Kathy has brought some of this up. We need to have a maintenance plan. We're gonna have all these, and also the trails that go in, is it gonna be wide enough for ATVs or UTVs for a fire department to get back for heart attacks or accidents? You know, there's a lot of things that, I mean, it's great to have these plans, but we need to have the maintenance part of it, just like when you own a home. So that's where I'm, a little concerned that if we keep doing all these projects and then there's really nobody to maintain. And we have the Parks and Pathways millage, so there should be money in there or set aside for maintenance. I mean,
so
unless,
that was,
go ahead, sorry.
I think that's a great point, and that's part of why in this recent budgeting process, I budgeted for 4 staff this summer, and I used that kind of as a research opportunity to really track every hour that they spent doing maintenance at each property, exactly what they were doing, In the past 3 months, they did 730 hours devoted solely to maintenance, trail maintenance and development. And so the past few months, I've been doing the research to really figure out how can we create a maintenance plan that is data driven. And like I was saying before, it will require a fully staffed parks department to manage these properties.
And, sorry.
Trustee, sorry,
Thank you.
Trustee Kira, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Thank you.
Trustee Riser.
I have one question. In looking at the figure 4 in the packet, thank you for this, Anna. We've got number 1 at the top, the north, planned parking lot. I assume that's what we're talking about. And then you've got potential southern parking lot. How do you decide which will serve more people, which will be better access? What's better for Scio? How do you choose between the two as to where to put one now and where to put one in the future?
So this conversation about the southern and the northern parking lot kind of precedes my time with Scio by a bit. I'm happy to speak to this. I don't know, Joe or Will, if you're feeling inclined to speak to this.
Well, I think I can add that the problem of the southern access to Van Curler is something that the Parks Advisory Board has been wrestling with, or Parks Advisory Board before the current committee wrestled with. It's difficult because the terrain at that end of the park, right on Huron River Drive, is very steep. So it's not really a good place to put a parking lot within the park. There have been ongoing negotiations with the Metro Park to possibly develop kind of a connector path, but that would also involve a crosswalk over Huron River Drive. But that is much more complicated, in some ways less far along than the work on the northern access, which actually was quite complicated. I don't know if you all remember, but we acquired an additional parcel of land up there in order to have a better location for a trailhead and parking lot off of Joy Road.
All right, thank you.
Please
question.
Go ahead.
One comment and then one question. A comment to just follow up to Jillian's line of questions for Anna. I'll just say, Anna, I know, does an awesome job of collecting data. She was, citing with the number of hours for each thing, doing a great job of tracking her expenses to get a sense of, how much a maintenance is gonna take. So I think Anna's doing a great job. What's been lacking is a finance director and sufficient qualified finance staff to help our department heads do meaningful planning. I don't know how many times I've sat down with Andy, Anna, and we have needed that. So I think we're gonna start getting that with PM Gap and bringing on Lori as a finance assistant. Secondly, for the board, I'll remind us that our ordinance requires that this board does a capital improvement plan every single year. We have done it once in 2020. In 2020, we had a parks maintenance that includes all the capital maintenance, but I do, every time I walk across that boardwalk, I think, I wonder how often this should be inspected and maintained, and I know that Anna's very capable of developing that, but those sorts of long-term plans will require the support of our manager and our finance director in order to get those in place. And then, Will, a second question I had is what is proposed here, how much does it depend on the agreement with Metro Parks, if at all?
Well, I don't know, Joe, if
the value of it.
Oh, the
value of doing this. How much does it depend on getting that agreement with Metro Parks?
The value of doing what?
Well, the plan, we've got the southern parking lot and the crossing here.
Those are potential.
Those are potential. So this full cost is just for the parking lot on the north.
Correct.
Yes.
That's all we're talking about today. I mean, we're all talking about the other access, but all we're acting on tonight is the northern access.
Okay, and is that northern access if Anna, if we, for some reason, got only that northern access, would that still be a good park for Scio?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
There's, as I was mentioning, I have a potential trail system mapped out, and it's been ground truth, like it's been walked, and it could be a great trail system. There's a potential situation in which there's a trail system for the north parking lot and a separate trail system for the southern parking lot, should the Metro Parks wish to partner with us, and maybe they wouldn't want to have the trail system connecting to the north parking lot. There's a lot of possibility. I think just the north parking lot in of itself is a great chance for people to get out and explore Van Curler.
Thank you.
Anyone prepared to make the model motion?
I would so move.
Moved by Riser. Support by Noel. Please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoff? Yes. Brzezo?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Riser?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
That brings us to J5.
Thank you.
Possible.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Actually, Anna may stay on for this next item because this involves you too. The possible action on the Wild Fry Farm 7970 West Liberty site preparation. And I prepared this item. I can explain it briefly and respond to any questions that people may have. And Anna is here. She's also been involved in preparing this. As you know, from prior discussions and prior reports, the township owns this farm on 5 acres and is preparing to sell it after it is designated a historic district. The idea, and this was something that has been a project of the township since 2021, is to have the historic district in place, and similarly to what we do with agricultural land, where we have an agricultural conservation easement, and that protects the land, the use of the land, limits what can happen with it in some ways. And then in our buy, protect, sell process used by the Land Preservation Commission with agricultural properties, we sell it to some farmer. In the case of the Wren's farm, for example, the Vestergaard family, and the Vestergaard family was in a sense, the winning bid in an RFP process. That's what we're preparing for with the Wild Fry Farm, and what Anna and our interim township manager, Mark Thompson, identified as a step that needs to occur is the removal of all of the discarded tires that were left by the prior owner on the site. So when the township acquired the farm, it had 2 big piles of discarded tires of various types. And clearing those out of the way is sort of a preliminary step. And then after that, we can conduct the environmental assessment, which is another step that is prior to sale of the property. And so this agenda item is to basically set in motion a plan that began under Mark Thompson, working together with Anna and in consultation with our consultant, Melissa Milton-Pung, who has been guiding us through the County Historic District Commission process. That process is about to culminate in September, that's my understanding. And at that point, we will be ready to move forward as township to sell the property to whoever is the prevailing bidder.
Okay, let me just recap, I think, everything you just said in like 1 sentence, if I may. Okay, because that was a mouthful. It sounds like we have a piece of property that has some harmful material on it, it has tires. And in order for us to even contemplate any kind of next step, no matter what that next step might be, we've got at least got to clean the property up and remove this hazardous and harmful material. And that's what this motion is about, a la the tires. Do I have that right?
Well, it also includes the environmental assessment, but you don't want to do that before you.
Right, understood that. And if it's the farmhouse I'm looking at, isn't it one time we wanted somebody to kind of fix up this farmhouse at one time back in 2020?
They were renting it, I believe.
I mean, we drove, and it's the intent, My other question is, like, somebody's actually trying to restore that thing?
Oh, it's a fixer upper.
Oh, no doubt. My wife and I drove by that thing, like a week ago, and we went, is this the house Will's talking about? Is he like, serious, like,
It's being
is that what you're thinking?
historic.
It isn't historic.
Yeah, well, has it been
It's
deemed
history.
that already?
Yeah, it's history, all right.
Okay, Jessica has her hand up.
Well, do you have questions?
Yeah, so a little bit of background. So yeah, in 2021, Trustee Jerome, Trustee Courteau, Supervisor Hathaway, and Trustee Jerome, you know, he's a historic expert, you know. So we've had this old Bateson farm, you know, as a settlement. It's, you know, a lot of history to it. It is one thing Donna and I think resounding, you know, sell it. I wanted to get rid of this property for a while because I didn't really see that it was a diamond in the rough. People who have more knowledge about historic preservation recognize that. We agreed in the board 2021 to apply for it to become a historic district through the county process. It's almost through, and procured the services of Melissa Milton Pong to take us through that process. Good. As Will said, there's one more hearing at the county. We are hopeful that it will be finally designated as a historic district in September. What I want to say and why I oppose what's before us tonight without some more work is we currently have $4,500 budgeted in our budget for this entire property. That $4,500 is dedicated to the remainder of Melissa Milton Pong's services. And so we have no budget for cleanup. We have no budget for any of these steps. So first of all, I'd like to know I don't want to do this piecemeal. I want to know what the full costs are estimated to be. And then I also insist that the board decide how we're going to sell this. I would say that the buy, protect, sell policy does not apply to this. I think it would be inappropriate to apply it to this. I have advised Will, as I know several other people have privately, that we should use a realtor to ensure that we're complying with all federal and state laws and norms. I think as a government selling public property, we also want to make sure that we get the highest dollar value for this. Our goal, and I think our obligation, is to get the highest dollar value for this. What's different with Buy, Protect, Sell is that's part of the open space program where the voters have asked us, they passed that millage and they said, we want to preserve that property. And so maybe if Vestergaard doesn't give us, you know, as much money as a developer would, well, that's okay, because that meets the intent of that millage. The voters have never asked us to collect less money on this property than we should. We decided to make it a historic district. I think it's wonderful. I think it would take a broad search, you know, to find the right buyer. And I want to make sure that we do the sale properly. I'm very concerned about going forward piecemeal. In our last newsletter, we said, if you're interested, please email Will Hathaway. I am very concerned that I don't want to do a homegrown RFP process for something where the standards are already going to be set by the county as a historic district, all the standards that people need to keep it up. I think the only thing I want from the buyer is top dollar. If there are additional conditions we want to place on the buyer, additional obligations of caretaking or something like that, then this board needs to set what they are. But I think that we're going into pretty uncomfortable terrain for me to say we're looking for a particular type of buyer beyond what the market result would be.
Okay, couple comments.
So let's go around. Trustee Brazeau, then Trustee Knoll, and then Trustee Carey. I think you raised your hand.
So I think Jessica, you make some valid points. Don't disagree with that. You know, I think that, you know, how long is a piece of string, right? What are we really getting into? That is one argument, right? And now that I guess we've committed to it being a historical property, I guess we are kind of in it at this point.
We are in that. Yes,
we're in it. Okay, got it. I agree about getting top dollar, makes sense. I don't know why we wouldn't use a realtor, makes sense, that's what they do for a living, it all sounds good. To Will's point, this is kind of preliminary stuff you kind of have to do anyway, so back to your point, it does $4,500 even begin to pulling out tires? No clue. I mean, we should probably get at least a quote on that, or a couple of quotes. What's it cost to pull tires? Oh, is it?
I've done some work on the cost.
Okay.
Well, they're only gonna cover
And then does that also include the
environmental assessment? Yes.
It does.
Yeah, this figure is a conservative figure that should more than cover those two things.
Okay, so maybe it's a hybrid of both things. So
like, what's the cost of a realtor? What's the cost of the full project?
Well,
and that's what we don't know.
It's coming back before we move on to that phase.
Yeah.
So the board will have a chance for the kind of input that you were talking about. But I'm sorry, please go ahead.
So I guess what I think is kind of, you're both right, I guess is where I was going with. I think it's probably okay to do this for right now, but full stop at that point. Next step is, to Jessica's point, now that we've got the site, we really have it cleaned up. It's a good thing to have tires out of there and have it accessible, because we do have a environmental impact, that changes the game for everything anyways.
And we have a consultant who's, that $4,500 is to pay her for the final phase of the project that we set in motion back in 2021.
But I would say
we
that
did not authorize an RFP process to.
I would say how we handle phase 2, I had to kind of decide with Jessica on that one. I think it is realistic. Let's just be a lot more incumbent upon ourselves to flush out what that process would look like. So I think I'm okay with 1, as long as 1 kind of goes to her number 2. Doesn't sound right, but you know, I sort of meant by that.
Trustee Noel?
Okay. I feel very strongly that we need to handle this through a real estate agent, not the way it's been going. And so, some history. I have walked the property. I walked it with Jackie Curto, Alec, and Barry. It is beautiful property. The tires are an eyesore. But let me ask a question. Do we necessarily have to have the tires removed before this property is listed? I mean, let's get with a real estate agent who has some knowledge about environmental contamination with tires.
Only if they burn.
Property.
Just how much do we have to do to this property? I don't want to go down this path.
I don't know that we have to do this at this time. I think that it can be listed, but let's talk to 1 or 2 or 3 real estate agents.
There's only 1 in the room.
Well, let's try to find out more information.
Okay.
I'm not done.
Okay, I didn't want to.
So also there's some uncertainty with some of the facts as you've listed them. The actual cost of the recycling of the tires, that's uncertain. The large tractor tires can't be recycled, so we're gonna have that cost too. That's not.
Can't be recycled by Recycling Ann Arbor.
Okay, but if we go down the path of removing all the tires, someone's going to have to deal with the large tires too. And that will be an additional cost that's not in here. Why not leave the tires and reduce the cost of the parcel accordingly? I mean, that's what I think we should do. And
it seems that odds with getting the top dollar, but okay.
Is there a requirement as to when the environmental assessment has to be done?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, I'm more focused on the environmental assessment than I am about the tires, because there's contamination. That's a real problem.
I know you're next, but I'll respond to the question because there is an answer. So the tires, if you leave them there, they become a part of the environmental assessment. In other words, you have an environmental assessment that says, here's a problem. So
like arsenic.
Or well, not like arsenic, but like discarded tires. And so the sequence of events is important. You want to remove the tires in terms of the environmental assessment so that when the environmental assessment is done, you aren't cited for it. It's sort of like, if you have an audit coming, you want to make sure that your books are in order rather than have the audit find that something's wrong with your books and then fix it.
but we don't know that it necessarily has to be done, right?
We don't know the extent of all the problems on this property.
Well, that's true. We won't, well, just a second, I'll get to you. The issue of the environmental assessment is something that has to be done before it is sold. You have to have an environmental assessment, and this environmental assessment would also, the quote I got is $2,700. Would also include the buildings, so that's all inclusive.
Is that in
And
here? Is that
no,
in
I
here?
got it after I prepared the agenda. I got that
What's the dollar amount you're talking about, Will?
The dollar amount.
That we would need to take from general fund balance and budget tonight.
It's here, it's in the motion, isn't it? I
It
thought
would take
it
out
was.
15K, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
But I didn't see the amount for the environmental assessment.
well, that's because I didn't have the precise figure,
So,
but I had a
well-
general figure, and I gave a total figure that would cover an estimated cost for both the tire removal and recycling, and including the tractor tires and the environmental assessment. So there's enough funds here, it's an up to amount. I don't anticipate that it will take the full $1,500 or $15,000, but that's all of both of those costs are included in there.
Those are materials we should add in the packet to review, like the cost of the environmental assessment. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I know everyone's going crazy. over
John
there.
is the only one behaving tonight.
Trustee Carey, Trustee Carey, please.
So, Will, the historic, from the county, that will be complete. Now, are they demanding that we have an environmental assessment?
No.
Okay, where's that coming from?
It's a precursor to sale of the property. So the mission here, the goal is to prepare for the sale of the property to somebody, a private or person or an organization.
I understand that. So are there red flags that this is a contaminated site other than tires?
Oh, I'm
yes.
Okay, I'm talking with Will.
There are uses that occurred on the site prior to the township owning it. And the environmental assessment is a step that's necessary in order to reassure buyers that they're buying with full knowledge of what's there, that there's no surprises inherent in the property.
Okay, so all right, well, what I'm thinking is that, I mean, I thought this was mandatory because, historic property may have different rules for sales and whatnot, but why do we need to do this? Because usually when you're selling a property or buying, then you're discussing and you're disclosing everything. Like this could be a potential issue.
The buyer could pay for it.
Yeah, the buyer could. And this would, and I know that about top dollar, but right now in this real estate market and a historic, I think that.
So we have had expressions of interest from a number of different potential buyers.
We need to know more about that.
Well, of course, I mean, this is the site prep. We're moving towards that stage where we're going to talk about it. And clearly the board has strong opinions about how that sale of the property, that final step should occur. We will have that on a future agenda before it happens. I have the sense that people feel like I was just gonna sort of sell the property and then tell you about it. That is not how this is planned. We have a consultant who's actually ready to come and work with the township as the final part of her contract to help with preparing the RFP. Now, we don't have to go that route. We could change our mind as a board.
I'd like to change our mind tonight.
Well, there's no need to do that. That's
RFP.
precipitous and uninformed and not necessary at this point. What we do need to do is to prepare. And I would like to say one other thing about the reason for taking care of the tires. We control the property right now. And a big issue is that this property is, it's right in the middle, not right in the middle, but our nature preserve, yes, exactly. So our nature preserve, our nature preserve wraps around this property. So part of the reason for doing it this way, for example, removing the tires while we still have control of the site, is we want those tires removed. We don't want to have a big pile of discarded tires right next to our nature preserve, let alone try to sell a property with a big mess on it. let alone have a citation for, you know, discarded tires in an environmental assessment.
But I'd
So
like
we don't have an ordinance officer.
I'd like
so don't worry about
some
that.
professional advice of how to sell this property.
well, we can go that route. We can hire a realtor. We can involve a realtor in the process if the board chooses to do so, but we don't have to decide about that tonight. We just have to make a decision about cleaning up the site, which is something we really want to do.
But there was no budget, no plan, and what I'm saying.
There is a plan.
No,
There's funds identified. We often pay for things out of the general fund, and in this case, unlike many cases, we have a way of reimbursing the general fund for those costs because we are going to sell this property. It's probably going to sell for in excess of $300,000. There will be plenty of money to reimburse the township for these incidental costs of preparing the site. Plus, we have a deal with the county to reimburse us for up to $2,000 of the tire recycling.
Because this wasn't even in our budget as recently as March. When we adopted our budget. What I'm saying is, of course, we don't like tires, we don't like it, but the bigger issue is for 3 months, we've been talking about this and been saying, hey, I mean, first of all, we never authorized Melissa Milton Pong. She's done a wonderful job for the historic district, but we never authorized saying, we are going to sell this property through a homegrown RFP process. That is my concern tonight. And if we were to decide to do this in a normal way, that would ensure us that we were protecting ourselves from liability, making sure we're reaching out to the broadest number of potential buyers possible, making sure that we're treating everybody fairly, potential buyers of this, and making sure we're trying to get top dollar. I mean, that's all it is. If we did a normal process for selling it and had some assurance that, okay, it's gonna be 15,000.
That's not on the agenda right now. That's not what he's talking about.
It's, you know, Mark, the issue is, my issue with doing it this way is he's been kicking it down the can down the road for many months now. And by saying that we're going to do an RFP process, that there's something in motion, this board has never discussed or authorized that.
That's not true.
Don't worry about it.
Donnie has a question.
He just said that's not true.
Oh,
I don't have a question.
Or whatever.
I have a statement to make.
Please don't.
Number one, if any of us were going to sell our properties, we certainly would do everything we could to make it, what's the word I want?
Maybe.
Staging. My daughter is a top real estate agent. And I'll tell you right now, she'd walk out there and she says, get rid of the tires, do what you can otherwise, as just advising us what to do. Getting rid of these tires, doing this action tonight is just cleanup. It's not establishing an RFP. It's not all the other things, which is good information, Jess, but we're not doing that tonight.
Donna,
let's get it cleaned up and then let's get the information that you're addressing. We go to the next step.
Thank you. Donna, can I ask one thing? I agree with you on the tires. What about the environmental assessments? Do you think we should be paying for these at this point? And do you anticipate, I mean, from your experience, like, do you anticipate there might be more costs that come trickling in?
I don't know. I've never heard of any experience that my daughter has had, but I'm sure there's environmental studies done. You people have more land information than I do.
I've sold commercial property, and you have to have an environment. If you don't have an environmental assessment done, it does raise a lot of red flags.
Then we should do it.
The point though, if we find something, it's a whole different issue, right? Then we decide to touch it, not touch it, play with it, not play it. But I think to Will and to Donna's point, this is going to be some basic cleanup, and that's as far as we're going right now. Like I said, I think that's common sense stuff that we're doing today. Next step is, to your point, I think you're right. We hire a realtor. We go a lot deeper in this, but I think this is kind of foundational stuff. Let's clean up the basement. Let's get the dumpster out. Let's clean up the junk.
Yes.
Nobody can argue with that. It's going to make the property look nice and be a little more attractive no matter what we do.
Does the historical district have to be complete before we sell?
Yes.
Yeah, you want to have that in place. It's like
When is that?
in September.
It is September, okay.
So this is the time to do this. We have the time to do both the recycling of the tires, the removal and recycling of the tires, and the environmental assessment, and position the township to be ready to sell the land in whatever process the board decides to use to do so. And Trustee Reiser, you had your hand up.
Yeah, that's okay. That's how we work. That's fine with me. There's a higher per tire cost. I'm worried, like, how many of the big tires are there? And if the small ones are up to $17.50, then how much are the big ones that
Tractor tires?
Yeah.
So I'm still gathering information about how to dispose of those. I have a couple of possibilities. One, if we're paying to dispose of them, I saw one quote from someone who's done some more of this work in the past of $25 a tire for the tractor tires. But I've also had people say, I'll take one or two of those big tractor tires off your hands.
For flower bed or something?
Well, whatever use they're gonna make of it. And so one option is to use the contractor who's loading the roll-off containers, and he's already agreed to place those if we can schedule it in advance to load those into vehicles if someone has a vehicle big enough to take one away.
So that's, how much more is this $15,000 allocation? Number two, from a risk management, are they further contaminating the soil? Are they attractive nuisance for trespassers to get there and get hurt? I'm like, we should, if it's blight, frankly, and it's our property that's blighted. Yep. So we should get rid of our blight as soon as we can. Maybe we split this motion and we wait on the environmental assessment until we hear from a realtor to say that, but we pay to get the tires out of there as soon as we can. So I'd be okay, Will, with moving forward on the tires. We can always do a quick motion for that, and that way. And then, as far as going to a realtor, we also have Fink and Fink. They can help with the closing. So I don't know if we pay our own real estate attorney to attend the closing or work on that, or if we go through a realtor. We could probably pay for the cleanup of the tires, what we pay for commission on a realtor, but this is not, I don't think that's not properly before us tonight, realtor versus selling it ourselves and using our own in-house counsel on the legal aspects. But I guess I'm willing to move the motion with the exception of waiting on the environmental assessment until we hear from subject matter expert, whether that's counsel, whether that's a realtor, so that's a compromise I think that we could all live with tonight.
So I think if you were gonna adjust the amount, I would take it down to $10,000, up to $10,000 to deal with the tires, disposal, recycling, etc. And that would be adequate to cover that cost.
Yes, and I would strike any reference to at this juncture in the model motion with respect to
environmental assessment.
Okay.
And I would support that and offer an additional suggested amendment to kind of keep us on track here. But I don't know, did you formally make that motion, John?
Yeah, I can read it out verbatim.
Want me to?
Yeah, I move the model motion.
Can I give it a shot, John?
No, John is doing it.
Okay.
I move to authorize the township manager and supervisor to proceed with removal and disposal of the discarded tires at the Wild Fry Farm through a partnership with Washtenaw County and Recycle Ann Arbor, and for the supervisor to sign the attached memorandum of understanding, which has been reviewed by the township attorney.
No.
And
that's as part of the tire disposal.
And I'm getting rid of. And I'm not saying to authorize the engagement of appropriate contractors, the assessment or building inspections. Okay. And then I continue on with my motion at an expense of up to $10,000 from the general fund to be reimbursed through a $2,000 county grant for tire recycling and through the proceeds from the sale of the property, period. That is my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Jinx.
So moved by Riser, supported by Carrie. Is there further discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'll just, as I think the easiest way to have the discussion is to just read what I would make the motion to be as close, building on that. But to first budget $10,000 of 101 general fund balance to 101-803 historic district. Authorize the township manager and supervisor to proceed with removal and disposal of discarded tires, et cetera, through by the township attorney, strike the rest, expense up to $10,000 and seek reimbursement through a $2,000 county grant for tire recycling and through proceeds from sale of property. I would offer and to ask the manager and supervisor to return to the board with a recommendation on a realtor for this unique property by our September 28th board meeting.
And I would not support that. That would have to be a motion. I'll oppose that. I just want to do baby steps. I'm sure they're going to come back to us. Joyce can read the tenor of this room, and I don't know that a realtor is the way to go.
I don't know. And maybe if
how about a recommendation?
If a recommendation regarding if a realtor.
Can't we just ask them to look into whether we want a realtor or not?
My concern is this has been going on for months, and I'd like the board to provide very clearly what their position is.
Yeah, except
if there's anything for a manager to implement.
I don't think the board wants to do what you want to do. And we already have the manager, the township manager and I already have a meeting scheduled with our consultant who we've already contracted with to help us with this.
Not for the RFP though.
Wait, God. And we will talk with her. I will pledge to the board that we will consider all the options. We will consider whether to proceed with hiring a realtor, because maybe that makes sense. And we will bring back, I will work with Joyce and we will bring back either a recommendation or multiple options that the board could choose from.
The next step. The consultant will.
Melissa Milton Pump.
Oh, you're historic county. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was somebody else.
Trustee Noel.
Okay. You made a comment about potential buyers. Are there any potential buyers in mind?
In mind, what does that mean?
You've had people email you directly expressing their interest.
Well, yes, and there was an article in January that talked about this, and a whole bunch of people contacted the township, and I've been trying to keep track of all of the people who've expressed interest. And when someone calls, because every once in a while a realtor will call and say they have somebody who's interested, I'll say, well, here, give me your information or have them send me an email. I'm keeping track of everybody who's expressed interest. And the intent was to make sure that everybody who's expressed interest, going back to the beginning, is informed when there is something that, it's tangible, for them to respond to.
Then why are we cleaning up if we have all this interest?
So I'm not opposed to what you're saying. I just want to separate. Let's get rid of the damn tires, number one, and then let's have Joyce come back with.
Then John, how about this?
I don't think we need to have a motion to ask Joyce to have us come back with a recommendation on this.
So John, I know sometimes, I think that being explicit and clear in this instance is important. I want to say a couple things for the record. This has been going on for weeks. I will say, at no time have I ever heard the township attorney say an RFP process would be a very good and legal idea. At no time have I heard, I haven't heard anybody advocate for this. I will say we did not contract with Melissa Milton Pong to run an RFP process for her. We did not agree to do this. I think it's really unconventional. It sounds very risky to me. And frankly, we have other priorities.
Which is not part of my motion. I'm just trying to get rid of some tires.
John, let's get rid of the tires. We can do two motions if you want to do.
Yes, please.
But okay, so do you want to do your tire motion and then I'll make a motion regarding the other matter?
Could I call the question on the tire motion?
Read it again. I'm not clear on it. I have an issue with it.
And then we'll split it.
I want to hear it.
Did you want to add the language?
I would like to add that the clarifying language from Fund 101
Yeah, to budget $10,000 from the general fund balance to 101-803 to authorize continued all the way to township attorney, strike up to 10,000 and seek reimbursement through a $2,000 county grant for tire recycling and through the proceeds of the sale of the property. Is that accurate?
That's accurate and acceptable, and I would support, we would join together in that motion.
So that's her amendment.
Yes.
And you're,
Yep. I'd allow it as a
third.
substitution. Yes.
Okay, and it was a second by Carrie. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
That's what I just asked and she just said yes. Okay, why don't we call the roll on that motion?
Okay, I'm okay if you're okay.
Okay, for the first of two motions on this item, Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer? Yes. Flintoff? Yes. Brazeau?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Riser?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to ask the manager, and Joyce, let me know if this timeline works, to ask the manager and supervisor to return to the board with a recommendation on if a realtor for this, on if we should use a realtor for this unique property by our September 28th board meeting. Or maybe even like use a realtor, but how we should sell. I'd say if we should use a realtor. I think that works.
Well, I would support that.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, so moved by Flintoff, support by Hathaway. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
And that wasn't so hard.
And
but it was.
Really? Okay.
Now, just for some, you guys, for some historical information, again, this farm didn't cost us anything.
All right, we're trying to sell it. Let's not talk about that right now.
It has over the years. It has over the years.
It was in payment of by court order.
I don't know,
for
50 or
bill.
60.
Five, well,
I thought it was more than that.
well, there's a diagram in here that shows what the relative size of the different, roughly the relative size of the different parcels is.
Oh.
Okay, so I was considering this with it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not sure that that's true about the farm part of the larger parcel. I know the larger parcel is a tax forfeiture, but I think there may have been some purchase price paid for the farm buildings.
Had to have some potassium. You guys are stressing.
Well, we'll have to look into it. In any case, we're moving on. We have item G5, which was pulled from the consent agenda. This is Scio Township's signage logo, which was originally a project of the Land Preservation Commission and has been used for identifying properties acquired by the Land Preservation Commission, either conservation easements or outright purchases of nature preserves. And the Downtown Development Authority is seeking permission from the Township Board to use that same logo to do an update of the signage along Jackson Boulevard. And we actually happen to have with us the person who's been sort of the point person for the DDA board. Ryan, if you want to come up and answer any questions about this, please feel free.
Who has the concern, or what is the concern?
I don't know. Jessica asked to pull it from the consent agenda. So Jessica, if you have some questions for Ryan or something else that you would like to raise.
Yeah, you know, over the last 4 or 6 weeks, I've asked both the DDA and board to keep with precedent regarding signage on the boulevard. So when we, I think 2019, 2020 decided to remove those signs, it was a joint decision of the board and the DDA. And so I'd asked that this come back to the board for approval. I haven't seen that yet. I don't know if, I wanted to clarify from the DDA, Will and Ryan, are you asking the board if we like this sign? Because I want to know about the maintenance of it. That was always the problem with the other signs. They got so bad, we had to take them down. So I want to know about kind of materials and then one basic question. I'm not going to get too far into design, but you know, one of these has the 2 lines, welcome to Scio Township, which to my eye, it looks kind of like Scio, you know, versus the second one says, welcome. This one looks a little better to me.
That one that you just pointed to is the most up-to-date rendering from the sign designer that the DDA got a bid from. So that hopefully clarify that issue. I think the other document was included as historical background or reference, I believe, from a previous rendering or sort of along the process of understanding it. I think the biggest ask was from the DDA was understanding from the board's perspective what I suppose the board wanted to see, or if there was a I believe specifically the ask was, is there an approved logo from the township? I believe that was what we came to at the last meeting, correct? Well, if you remember.
Well, I thought when at the DDA board meeting, we were looking at this and the question came up, do we need permission from the township in order to use the logo?
Yep. And
rather than make assumptions, the DDA board said, well, let's make sure that, that we're bringing the township board along with us on something that's going to be so visible.
And permanent.
Well, for a long time anyway. The signs that are being replaced, though, I think we should make a distinction. There were directional signs.
I have no idea where you're planning to place it.
So there were directional signs that were falling, many of them in such bad repair that they were illegible. They weren't serving a real purpose. And the decision eventually was made to just remove all of those. And the DDA board did that along with the township board, I think in what, 2022? I'm not sure.
2019 actually.
Well, actually it happened while I was supervisor, so it can't have been 2019.
Yeah. Well, that's when we approved it jointly. Yeah.
I don't know, but in any case, those signs were removed finally, and the signs that we're now talking about are the kind of welcome to Scio signs that are in several different locations along the, well, they're about to be several because the Woodview Commons, as one of their community benefits, is installing a sign, and we want to make sure that whatever they install at their end of the boulevard is consistent with whatever else is along the boulevard.
So I'm kind of, and that's helpful, Will. So kind of like for the DDA, like how many signs, where are they going to be? Is there any hope of fixing the welcome to Scio in the middle of Scio?
So that, if you're referring to that sign in front of, if you're referring to the sign in front of Meyer,
yes,
I believe that's owned and allegedly maintained by them. I can get some clarification on that. These 2 signs, like Will said, one will be, from my understanding, in the median along Jackson, near Baker, right by their development. Exactly where I don't know yet. That would be a better question for David Solomon. The other side would be on the other end of the boulevard at Jackson and Wagner. So as traffic's coming out of Ann Arbor, we would hit it that way, and then we'd have the traffic coming from the west headed towards the more center part of the township.
Okay. And what is the maintenance for this? And does the color hold up? And has the DDA yet passed a motion to begin paying for the maintenance of the boulevard?
We have not met since you asked that question. We're going to be meeting, I believe, the date September 11th, which is why I asked the board when we had communicated through email to bring this up. That way we can get this on the agenda. I do know that when I talked to the gentleman that bid on the signs and designed them for us, these are designed out of metal, they're designed to last. But
okay, so are we adopting this logo for all of Scio? Because it sounds like before the LPC had this logo, but then the rest of Scio doesn't have a logo. Yeah. Shouldn't the whole township have a logo?
And I think that's a separate conversation.
Well, not really, because if we approve this.
And see, I was gonna move them out of motion, but I was going to say, and other Scio Township departments as approved by the township manager. So in other words, because I've been in the Scio parks and it looks like it's the same logo on our signs in the parks.
Yeah.
So shouldn't we just say, this is our logo, and if you want to use
instead
it,
of
see
piecemeal.
Joyce about using it, or the township manager?
My understanding is that this logo was created out of a necessity from the LPC as they were acquiring projects.
But others are using it.
I understand, I'm trying to lead up to that. The use that was approved by the board at some point years ago was for signage purposes for this logo.
Okay.
And the distinction was made between using it on signage and using it in other places, because my understanding is the board didn't want to impose requirements for changing all sorts of other stuff.
The water tower.
The water tower, for example.
Well, we're getting
has-
it painted. So
Well,
it's purple.
yes, so this would be a good time to, you know,
And
if we were
then-
gonna change it.
Then Joyce wouldn't approve that, because she'd say, oh, that's too expensive, we don't need that. I'm just saying, if other departments want to use it, they should be able to use it as long as somebody's writing herd on it.
But John, that's obvious. I mean, this is the DDA, it's a different entity
know
asking
that.
for approval.
And I wanted to broaden it so that we don't have to come back here and have
Yes.
another 40-minute discussion about which our logo, the one that we've been
Yeah,
using
and
for
The
decades, for
DDA
years.
is gonna.
Oh, yeah, and that's why I pulled it from consent, because I don't think that's really the question, John. I think the question is, do we approve of these signs on the
You know,
boulevard?
it looks like a tombstone to me. Is there some way we can change that? Because welcome to Scio, the last place you'll ever. Really, it looks like.
Hopefully they will stay forever.
Your final resolution.
I don't know,
You can
Hotel
check it anytime you
California.
I can certainly ask the gentleman who designed the signs to.
And the double Scio, I agree, it looks kind of.
I don't wanna
Scio, welcome
nitpick
to
the
our
signs.
town.
I'm really concerned. I don't wanna repeat what we've been doing where the DDA, and you guys told me you just approved these new improvements, new signs. I'm looking at the color on here. You guys have not yet committed to paying for the maintenance of the boulevard. And that's my concern, Will.
Well,
And-
I think that is a separate question.
Yeah.
It's related,
Why
but
install
it's.
new stuff if we're gonna have to keep paying for the maintenance? Because right now, the township will maintain this.
But we're taking what was essentially an intellectual property question and going into a maintenance question. So I mean, the scope of this is just using a logo on signs. And I agree that how we maintain them and polish them and wash them and do whatever we gotta do to them
Pay for
is
that.
important. But
And I agree, John, that wasn't, but I've asked for like 6 weeks for that question to come before this board. And it hasn't, and what I'm concerned about is that the DDA, you know, is just asking for our approval on the logo. And, you know, this maintenance thing's been kicked
But
around for a
shouldn't
year
that be
and
a
a half.
separate motion? I move that the DDA maintain the signs, or I urge a resolution in support of the DDA doing what they need to do to get the signs in order.
Well, the entire boulevard.
I would like, this is a deeper conversation.
This is a
that we
deeper
need to have with
conversation. The
DDA.
DDA has gotten the message that the township is looking to it to, you know, sort of step up to.
Spruce up the
make-
signs.
Well,
No, maintain the boulevard.
to do more maintenance. There's been this
It's a lot of
norm
money.
within the DDA. We've talked about this before. And I learned from township attorney that actually the belief that it was based on is not true, that there's no legal restriction on DDAs doing maintenance. In fact, that's a large part of what most DDAs do. And in fact, our DDA does things that would really, by any definition, be considered maintenance. So I think the DDA is moving in that direction, and I anticipate that question will be on the agenda when we meet in September.
And I would encourage the DD, it's over $100,000 a year that we could be spending on something else.
Gotcha.
I've got a question for you.
Trustee Noel.
So I have a concern. You said the sign would be placed close to Wagner Road and Liberty.
Oh, sorry, I meant to say, if I said Liberty, I misspoke, it should be Jackson and Wagner.
Oh, Jackson, just
So-
replacing that welcome sign.
Just replacing that welcome sign that's already there. I can say these signs are made out of metal, and when I did talk to the gentleman, really the maintenance, the extent of the maintenance that would need to be done to them would be potentially having them washed either with a power wash, or you could hand wash them probably once a year. So that's something I believe the DDA in one way, shape or form could probably consider and or tackle through either volunteerism or I mean, I could go out and do it on my end for all intents and purposes. But I definitely agree with Will. I'll make sure when I talk to Bob, because he's the chair of the DDA, to see if we make sure that we have that as a discussion item. That it needs to be discussed as far as the maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, the DDA has so much money it could be spending on maintenance, and we have a dwindling fund. We've flagged this year after year, so thank you.
Trustee Riser.
Yeah, I have a motion
Okay.
to acknowledge and approve the use of Scio Township signage logo by the Downtown Development Authority, comma, and other Scio Township departments as approved by the township manager, comma, as represented on the attached mock-ups of potential signs for Jackson Road, period.
So moved by Riser, support by Brazeau.
I like the logo, I just don't like.
And John, what does your modifier do?
It allows other people to use it. It ratifies the use of it in other places. I've seen it. And if people want to put it on their stuff, talk to Joyce about it. She'll say yes or no. If it's too expensive because they don't, I trust her to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. John.
It allows others to use it.
But it's the townships.
Scio Township departments.
It's
Scio Township department.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not gonna get authorizing tattoo parlors or anything like that. It's other Scio Township department.
Okay, I didn't know we needed to authorize our own departments to use it. It's fine to have it in there. I just wanted to touch base that, we had, the parks develop their own little thing. We've got the script and stuff like that. So you're saying this is one of several logos.
They can use it. Talk to Joyce if you want to use it.
So we have a motion that's been made by Trustee Riser and seconded by Trustee Brazeau. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
I'm opposed.
You're opposed?
Yeah, because this is another example how.
Roll call. Can we do, I'd like to do a roll call
We
then.
can do a roll call then.
Okay, Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoff? Yes. Brazeau?
Yes.
Carrie?
No.
Noel?
Yes.
Riser?
Yes.
Okay, motion adopted 6-1. Jillian?
Well, it's just another example of how we have all these different committees that, we're supposed to be Scio Township working together, and now it's disjointed, because if everybody has their own logo, and here we have a logo that could or couldn't be used, or may not be used, it's just another,
We didn't
it's just
resolve
another
the bigger
symptom.
question.
Yeah.
We didn't address the maintenance question or the bigger logo
Well,
question.
just branding, when you have a company, you don't have your different, you brand your company. You don't brand this product and this product. You may have a sub-brand, but, so Scio just really, this is a huge problem within Scio that we just don't work together. And we're all on different, paths or ideas and whatnot. And really, I've seen a lot of improvement in this past 6 months of us coming together. It hasn't always been easy, but the J-Rod meeting was a perfect example. It was really great. So I just think that we could, collaborate, try to come to a middle ground, and, here's a logo for all of us.
So let's move on to public comment. Brian, you're sitting up there.
I'll hang out and I'll say a couple of things.
Sure.
Okay. I would echo Jillian's comment for all of you that were not at the Thursday night meeting where it was a joint meeting between the DDA. Unfortunately, I was the only person with the DDA there. As well, sorry. Will and myself were the only two people from the DDA present, but Planning Commission had a very great attendance, as well as a lot of the board. I think having more of those meetings and having them about different topics would be helpful for everyone involved. Maybe we target something like once a quarter, once every 6 months, at least for set up a goal. The other piece I was going to speak to, your discussion about the environmental impact study, or sometimes it's called the ESA, sometimes it's called a BSA, depending on what you're doing. It is really crucial to have an environmental study of a property. Anyone that wants to go out and get a loan on that property is probably going to need it, especially with all it's a historic property. There's going to be asbestos there. I'm just going to tell you now, it's just how much asbestos is left there. There's probably going to be lead paint. There there probably might be some other things, because I know that property had its own history with other problems. But it's gonna be necessary at some point. $2,700 is reasonable in cost for that. It's in the ballpark. I mean, I think mine was a little bit higher because I had a larger parcel or piece of land. But it's definitely something you'll eventually need to do.
Turn off your computer.
Sir, my computer is not on. You're referring to a first responder who has his
Lance, is that your walkie-talkie? I'm sorry, David, I know it can be hard to hear back there. Ryan, could you kind of turn sideways as we did before? Sure. Thank you.
Sure. So ultimately, we are going to need to do the baseline environmental assessment at some point. It's just a matter of when. That really be my statement. You can choose when to do it. It's just going to be a step in the process to getting that property ultimately sold. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ryan.
And thanks for making it really early.
Thanks for all your work on the sign too.
Thank you.
That's why I wore the green shirt, because of the sign.
I'm sorry.
Anybody online?
Oh, we
Oh, Kathleen, I'm sorry, Kathleen. I thought you were getting up and walking out. I'm sorry.
How could you forget me?
Oh, I tell you. Come on now. Come on now.
That was good.
All of this discussion about DDA reminds me, there is a DDA member who has not lived in Scio Township since 2011, 12 years. He does not have a property in Scio Township, and that's probably going on 5 years now. He is a member of the DDA. He pays no taxes to Scio Township. This has been revealed to Mr. Hathaway. I'm not convinced that he's going to do anything about it. I didn't want to put the guy's name out there. He has the responsibility to deal with that issue.
Well, and I would say though, Kathleen, I do have a standing request. It's on our website. You know, just like when Spalding moved out of the township, you know, we notified that and brought it to the board. We make the appointments to the DDA. So I would say, you know, if there's anybody ineligible, that's the board's issue.
Well, actually, it is my issue, and I'm working on it. It was brought up during public comments at this joint meeting last Thursday, and I've been working on it since then, and we'll have some news about that soon.
Great.
Yeah, I brought it up at the joint planning. That was a very good meeting. I think it's the only time the planning chair has allowed me to speak more than 3 minutes.
Minute 37 seconds left. All right.
Is there anyone else present in the hall who would like to speak during public comment? Mr. Lutton.
David Lutton, 2530 North Lee Road. I am the developer of the Sloan Kingsley property. We have an annexation application in with Dexter. You have a subcommittee that has met twice. I would cede the next 2 minutes and 45 seconds for a little feedback from your subcommittee. Where do things stand?
I don't mind being part of that. We met on Friday, David, and Dexter, it's my understanding they had a meeting last night. Were you present there?
I was.
And I was not present there, so I'd be curious what representations they made.
And I'll say it. And I'll just add too, you know, David, the three of us are gonna write up another written report, and we just haven't connected to do that. So that's what I'm hesitating. I'll say out of Friday's meeting, you know, we found that the annexation request proposal does not achieve Scio Township's goals for open space and pathway. And Dexter stated that it did not meet their goals for connectivity, but they were taking it to the city council. And I'll turn it over to Trustee Noel.
Okay, so I got a text message from Joe Semafero, Dexter City Council this morning, and he texted me during their meeting last night. And he stated that we reported out, stated we didn't believe the project met the goals for Scio or us. We have asked for Dexter Council to discuss and agree on goals moving forward. So that was his quick summary to us about what happened at the Dexter City Council meeting last night.
And I haven't
talked
didn't attend, I haven't talked to anybody about the meeting last night.
So, I mean, if you guys want to elaborate a little bit more on our meeting, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it was brief, it was positive. I know Dexter updated us that they were doing the water capacity study, the wastewater capacity study, the water capacity study. They had OHM doing it, expecting sometime in the fall to be done. Wastewater study, F&B, end of October. And I know that was a big piece for them.
And what did they say at the meeting last night?
One thing was said that you, as an organization, felt that the application we have for land conservation with your commission was for the entire parcel, 237 acres. And certainly that is not what I presented to you back in April when I talked about the three-pronged plan. Many Hands, the nonprofit, the annexation parcel, and I believe the number is 105 acres for conservation. Certainly there have been some ideas and now within the Many Hands site plan that will be coming to the Scio Planning Commission in a few weeks. I think we've addressed some of the accessibility and I'm forgetting your phrase, Jessica, but as to what it didn't meet for Scio Township, if you could repeat that.
Yeah, absolutely. The annexation request to the city of Dexter does not meet Scio Township's goals for open space and pathways. And Mr. Lutton, if I could, from what you're saying, what I want to clarify is the written open space proposal that Scio has predates the presentation that you've provided all of us. We'll just pull it up on a screen again. That's part of the annexation. So the written open space proposal, what was it? John could say better, but it was, a year ago, I believe was for the full 237 was in the open space application. And understood that the proposal has evolved since then.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's like a 237 before the LPC, kind of in a holding pattern.
And that's the official application. This is
more recent and the latest iteration of your plans for that parcel.
Right, and then there's the 45 annexation that would obviously
part of the BOT. There's like the initial LPC proposal and the subsequent BOT proposal or Dexter proposal.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say that in a LPC commission meeting, I made it clear that we weren't talking about the whole parcel.
Understood.
That's fine. I asked that I report that, and I appreciate your clarification.
Yeah. And I'm willing to give specifics about what my reservations are for it. If you want to hear that, I don't want to speak out of school. I don't want to speak for the other two committee members or the BOT or the LPC. I'll just say as a person on the LPC and as a person on the BOT, the concerns are with respect to the western parcel, there's arsenic on there that would need to be abated, either covered or ideally excavated. So there's the presence of the arsenic on a parcel that we wanted a couple of years ago but didn't buy because of the arsenic. So there's that. It's a gorgeous piece of property. It's next to the creek. We'd love to have it someday if we could, but the arsenic is very problematic. With respect to the eastern parcel east of Baker Road, also a gorgeous parcel, some more preserve worthy than others potentially, but the limited access on the frontage. We're going through an issue right now with properties that we can't, that's really hard to put parking lots on because to get access to it, the road commission makes us take down so many damn trees. And we're getting just a little sliver that has the, I don't know if it's consumers or DTE, but they're there. So the lack of access, and we catch the dickens from the public about, hey, you buy this property that we can't access. So buying property in which residents can access, can park there is kind of a key thing for me. But I don't speak for Kathy and Jessica on that. I don't speak for this board of LPC. That's just me as an LPC and a BOT. That's my reservation about the property north of the 87 acres.
Yeah, John, I don't know if right now is the right time to be having a discussion. So
I just wanted.
I would say, Mr.
Did ask.
No, I know, but my suggestion is gonna be maybe have a one-on-one with each of the members. And that way you can address those things, and get a lot more detail, kind of get the reaction, formulate a response, and then get back with it would probably be more productive way to do that.
What we still owe the board, and you've heard 80% of it already, is a report back on the status, I think. And so John and Kathy and I will put that onto a piece of paper and give that to the board. We can integrate whatever transpired at Monday night's city council.
Well, we're just reporting on our meeting.
Yeah, that's true. And that's, Mr. Lutton, that's something that we kept, reiterating, was our number one goal is, maintaining great relations between Scio Township and the city of Dexter. And
they said the same.
Yes, and it's really, we've had two very, good meetings. It was the first time we'd ever had a chance to talk about this proposal or a lot of the related issues. Like, for example, one good outgrowth is we identified the need for shared pathways planning, right, between our pathways director and the city of Dexter to start thinking about, connectivity and where we want those things to go. So definitely, I think that there's some positive outcomes. It's just with what is before us in the annexation proposal, just did not meet Scio's goals at this point.
I don't mean to be disrespectful. We're 9 minutes and it's just unfair to other people. We limit
Yes,
to 3 minutes. That's all I'm trying to be.
You're right.
So it's not
I do have a question.
I just gotta be respectful to everyone else.
You're right.
The Dexter City Council is very clear that your proposal is 3 parts.
The Dexter,
is that?
Everyone is.
Everyone is.
But it sounded like that, from what you said, that they were only talking about open space annexation.
No, they said out loud that the application for land preservation conservation was for the entire parcel. And certainly that may have been true originally. That may have been the way Barry Lonick.
The formal application, not the current proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was a year ago, and since then things have evolved.
Okay, just.
And I think all parties.
Right. We never operated under that misunderstanding. Okay. When the 6 of us.
Well, the way they talked about it, and one of the people was online, and it was a little confusing. I just wanted to clarify that point with you.
Thank you.
Sounds like we're all in the clear. I won't take any more time.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to keep everybody happy, David. You know what I mean?
No, that's a good reminder. Are there any other people present who haven't spoken yet during public comment who would like to do so? I guess that's really just you. No.
All right. Do we have remote participants?
We have Pam Boyd, followed by Rob Henson. Pam, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Pam Boyd, a Scio resident. I agree with Trustee Carey about not having a brand that gets watered down. I think that the board should figure out one and one only. Question, and Ryan, I know you're in the audience still. Did the DDA poison the bushes on the boulevard? Because there's a lot of dying bushes on the boulevard. And I happened to be driving by one night, 10 o'clock, and saw a company out spraying those bushes. And I thought it was weird to be out at around dusk. So there's that. 2, a finance director is so needed. And 3, or whatever number I'm at now, it's a long night. I would ask for board members to disclose any campaign donations from any resident with an issue that is before this board for full disclosure and transparency now and in the future. For example, the issue of Misty Farms. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Rob. Rob, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Rob Pattinson of Scio Township. I think Mr. Lutton's example shows that Scio Township is so developer friendly that if you want to have interaction with the Scio Township board, all you have to do is be a developer and you can have a conversation for 10 minutes. It's really unfortunate that I don't hold anything against Mr. Lutton, but it's really unfortunate that you cut off residents at 3 minutes and yet you allow the developer to go on for minutes and minutes and minutes. You are exactly right, Trustee Brazeau. It's very unfair. So I might go over 3 minutes. Please don't interrupt me. I asked a lot of questions in my beginning comments. I would like responses to those questions. I've got some more for you. I'll put it in writing and send it to all of you. Trailwoods. You had a meeting with the Trailwoods developer. What was the result of that meeting? Please go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people, the developer, of course, there was Doug Lewan, our attorney, Jim Fink, Will, you were there, I was there. There was more. So what has been decided is Dave Lutton and Scott Betzold. Okay, thank you.
Dave Lutton?
Not Dave Lutton. Dave Stolman. Oh my gosh, everybody has the same names. Okay, so Dave Stolman. So they're demanding, the developers, that it goes back to the planning commission for a major amendment, which means there's going to be public hearings. They want communication. We're going to set something up on the Road Advisory Committee website for communication, you know, when it comes in, as it unfolds, so residents will be informed. This is not going to be an easy process. There's a couple of different plans that will go back to OHM. OHM will review and then give their insight. If Eagle ends up being involved, it could be a long process. They're trying to avoid that, which is understandable. So that's where we are right now. Nothing's going to happen this year. In the meantime, we had a meeting with the Road Commission today, and Park Road gravel uplift was from Zeeb to Stabler was discussed. There's more work that will be done. So please be patient with the issues there. So that's where we are. I think I covered everything. Will, do you remember anything else at the meeting?
I guess I would just characterize it a little bit differently. I don't think they demanded it, that it be treated as a major amendment. We talked about the options and they asked if it could be treated that way.
Yes, but they said, because Doug kept saying, well, it could be, if it's a minor amendment, then it doesn't have to go to the planning commission or further. And if it's major, and they said, we want it to be major because we want public hearings and communication.
That's the point I was trying to make, is that the developer very much wanted to have a public process where there would be an opportunity for people in the neighborhood, but anyone who's interested to have input.
And it just seems more efficient to start out saying it's major instead of minor and then determine major.
Right. I think that was part of it too.
Thank you. Thank you both for responding. Manager Parker, last month we asked for you arranged with Doug Lewan to have planning reports submitted to the trustees. We asked for those to be included in the agenda packet. They're not in this month's agenda packet. Could you collect those up and put them in a future agenda packet so we understand what the planning reports are?
Actually, I know that there was one included, I believe today, and then there were like 3 or 4 about a week or 2 ago that was added on the website.
Okay, I look for them in the 453-page agenda packet tonight, and I didn't see it anywhere.
Okay.
You know, Joyce, could I help you out here?
Yeah, I don't think it's in the agenda packet.
That's right.
It's on the website.
That's right. So it's on the planning and zoning page of our website. Joyce has started reporting the planning reports, the weekly reports from Carlisle Wortman. There are 4 of them.
Rob,
Yes.
there's one on the last night's PC packet.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. The noise ordinance, we've been talking about that for 2 years. We still need a noise ordinance with teeth that can be enforced.
And an ordinance officer.
You know, Rob, it's just simple. We just need an ordinance with teeth, period. I mean, it sounds like we set out rules and they can be ignored because there's no enforcement on anything. So what? So it doesn't matter what we say in a provision for a use of a permit or noise. It doesn't matter any of it. Nothing is enforceable. Who cares? So, I mean, that's just, yeah. I'm all for like getting somebody nasty. Like I want somebody to have fear in their eyes a little bit when the enforcement officer shows up, whoever that is.
Mark, no, we don't want that.
A little bit.
The 800-pound gorilla. Okay.
Yeah, just a little bit like, uh-oh, you again. It's going to cost me money. That kind of fear.
On that note,
I think Mark's volunteering.
So Rob, I'm sorry, we keep interrupting.
No problem. This is a lot more discussion than I anticipated. Thank you, Mark, for your Lithia opinion that you wrote, the email you wrote a couple of weeks ago. That was a fantastic start, and I hope it sparks the beginning of the PUD public benefit discussion that this group needs to put together so that we have what I talked about in my opening comments, that the PUD public benefits are more clear and fair. I have a question. Why wasn't there a supervisor's report tonight?
Sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't.
Most times there isn't. And then you made Anna wait for an hour before you started the meeting with her. We've asked you time and time again, when you have Scio Township staff involved, department heads involved in these discussions, put them at the beginning of the agenda. And then at the end of it, not a single one of you said thank you to Anna. And she was left on the screen there for 5 or 10 seconds and then signed off with nothing. So you didn't even thank her after it was all done, and you made her sit through all that. You made her sit through that for an hour. That was at 9 o'clock that she finally signed off. And now here's my written comments that were supposed to be at the beginning tonight. Two very odd things happened at last night's PC meeting. First, Commissioner Human found the only reference to the easement buried in the extremely fine print of a drawing attached to the PUD. Pam gave you a copy of that tonight. This is related to the property Dan Johnson was trying to get rezoned last night. Joe Maynard shared that the developer was so intent on getting access to this 2.4 acre parcel that they wrote it into the Heritage Woods deed. He then went on to say that they always intended the road to this parcel to tee into the Heritage South Court Street. No drawings were put on the screen to show this, as you were talking about earlier tonight, Commissioner Reiser, about how you gathered around the laptop. Nothing was put up on the screen. If it had been, we would have seen how clearly that picture showed that it was just a meandering pathway that went between 2 houses. In trying to find what Commissioner Human was talking about, I finally found the correct document from the November 28th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Page 15 shows a meandering sidewalk between 2 duplexes joining to the Johnson parcel. There was no way they could put a road between those 2 houses. I highly recommend that trustees watch the first hour of the Planning Commission meeting to see the discussion about this application. It should raise several red flags. Also, if this 2.4 acres was always meant to be part of the project, so much so that they put it in the deed, why wasn't it part of the Heritage Woods PUD? Did you know it was in the deed? The second odd item was when Commissioner Human asked Doug Lewan, who decides what is a permitted use? And Doug's answer was, I do. It turns out there are a lot of recommendations for approval from Carlisle Wortman and Doug Lewan based on Doug's say-so and not on our ordinances. For example, Commissioner Human was referring to the conditional use approval of a drive-through in a C3. Turns out our ordinance doesn't say that. That approval was decided years ago by someone, in quotes, and is now Scio policy. That exchange was extremely surprising, and I had no idea there were unwritten permitted uses based on Doug's say-so. This shows that Scio has some serious weaknesses in its ordinances, and this issue needs attention sooner rather than later. I believe we need a list of all of the approvals that Doug Lewan has recommended over the last several years to help identify those ordinances that are weak and need language to better define them. And thank you very much tonight for, during closing comments, having some interaction. I appreciate that. Good night.
Thanks, Rob.
And Robin, know you got 8 minutes, so just to keep in mind, we evened it up with the other one.
Yeah, but thanks for calling us out on talking to the developer longer than non-developers.
Terry.
4 minutes of my 8 minutes was you guys.
That's true.
Jerry, so who's next for public comment?
Thanks, Rob. Next is Jonathan Greenberg. Jonathan, you go ahead.
I think I heard my name, but I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Super. So, first of all, I want to say that I had some bad information about what was going on with regard to Park Road. And to that end, I'd worked on some pretty awesome remarks for our opening remarks today that were pretty hilarious, but at the supervisor's expense. I'm not using those jokes, Will. I was wrong in my assessment. And so, so I didn't deliver those comments because earnestly, I want to continue the conversation that's gone on tonight in the conversation that occurred in the last few meetings in the tone that they were in. So so I saw you shrug, Will, but this was a genuine motion to say that, I'm not interested in attacking the Park Road thing at your expense, but I'm glad to hear that the information that was floating around was incorrect. The main reason I wanted to speak tonight was primarily around, first of all, the time differential between the already highlighted time differential between the time that residents are given and the response residents are given relative to developers and other special people as seen by the board. Furthering Rob's comments, I think it would be a nice gesture if you guys just retired the timer and allowed residents to speak until they're done, with an understanding that, yeah, come on, if someone's rambling and doesn't have prepared remarks, then you play the Academy Award exit music and you move on to the next caller. But let's do that. Let's, as residents, commit to more friendly and less timely or less time consuming conversations. So thank you if you could do that. But finally, also continuing Rob's comments about decisions made by Carlisle, Wortman, and Doug. I have two for you. I have two violations of the setback on my property that he approved with regard to the building of Trailwoods. There's a driveway that's literally 8 inches off my property line with a absolute mandatory 5-foot easement setback. So his initials on the plot plan, he acknowledged last night in the meeting, he's responsible. So why is he approving, in my count, at least 3 different setback violations? It's a matter of his normal business. I only discovered it after they built the house, and I said, wow, that's really strange. And the homeowners on either side of me said, oh, no, we own all this property. I'm like, sorry, we'll get it staked. No, you don't. This has created an issue, and it's due to Doug's lack of, I don't know. He didn't catch whatever this is. He didn't see, oh, they're asking to build a driveway 8 inches from his property line. That's not appropriate. I should enforce Scio Township setback rules. He didn't do that. So now I have an issue with my neighbors not one I can't get over. I'm certainly not going to ask him to move their house or move the driveway. But, you know, he's creating problems for people in his less than spectacular performance, either as an enforcement officer, and it now occurs to me at pretty much everything he's responsible for. So thank you guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, there are no more.
A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved.
The fire
Support.
department get permission to use this logo.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned at 9:35. I believe it was Riser.
Riser.
So.
Okay, thank you.